Marcus stared at his monitor screen, his coffee growing cold beside him. The numbers didn't make sense. They couldn't make sense. But there they were, clear as day in the data streaming from the deep space array. "Hey, Tom," he called out to his supervisor. "Can you take a look at this?" The old radio telescope in New Mexico wasn't supposed to pick up anything interesting. It was just another quiet night shift, monitoring background radiation and looking for the usual patterns. But these signals were different. They had structure. They had purpose. Tom walked over, his heavy boots clicking against the floor of the control room. He leaned over Marcus's shoulder, squinting at the screen. "What am I looking at, kid?" "These patterns." Marcus pointed at the recurring spikes in the data. "They're too regular to be natural. And look at this encryption. It's like nothing I've ever seen before." Tom's eyes widened as he realized what he was seeing. Within an hour, the room was full of scientists and government officials. Within 2 days, the best code breakers in the world were working on the signal. Within a week, they had their first breakthrough. The messages were everywhere, hidden in what everyone had assumed was background noise, an entire galactic communications network, hidden in plain sight. The more they decoded, the clearer the picture became, and the darker it got. "It's an empire," Dr. Wilson explained to the Emergency UN Council. Her hand shook slightly as she held her notes. "A galactic empire comprising over 300 species. They have a strict hierarchy based on technological advancement and genetic potential." The room was silent as she continued. "And they've already classified us. We're listed as a Category 3 primitive species. According to their protocols, that means we're scheduled for," she paused, swallowing hard, "for eventual subjugation and integration into their workforce." The UN Secretary General leaned forward. "How long do we have?" "Based on their standard procedures, 15 to 20 years before they make official contact. They're waiting for us to advance just enough to be useful, but not enough to resist." The debate raged for days. Some wanted to broadcast a message to the Empire immediately. Others wanted to hide, to try to appear even more primitive. But in the end, a third option won out. "We prepare," said Admiral Thompson, addressing the world's military leaders. "But we prepare in silence. We now have access to their entire communication network. We can learn their technology, their strategies, their weaknesses, and they don't even know we're listening." And so began the greatest secret project in human history. Hidden bunkers were built under the guise of subway expansions. Factories were constructed in remote locations, disguised as mining operations. The best minds from every nation were quietly recruited. Marcus found himself at the heart of it all. His discovery had changed everything. And now he worked with a global team of scientists, decoding more transmissions every day. The picture they built of the Empire wasn't encouraging. Species after species had been absorbed, their cultures dismantled, their people turned into workers and soldiers for the Empire's endless expansion. But humans had something the Empire didn't expect. They knew what was coming. And as Marcus watched the first test of a reverse-engineered Imperial shield generator, he allowed himself to smile. The Empire thought they were studying a primitive species, but they were really watching a snake coil to strike. In his private quarters that night, Marcus looked up at the stars through his window. Somewhere up there, the Empire's bureaucrats were probably filing reports about Earth, noting down every visible satellite, measuring their technology level, planning the eventual conquest of another primitive world. "You have no idea what's coming," he whispered to the stars. In 15 years, the Empire would make official contact, expecting to find an easy conquest. Instead, they would find humanity waiting, prepared, and armed with their own technology. It would be the Empire's first warning, and their last chance to realize that humans were anything but primitive. 15 years passed like a whisper in the dark. Deep in the asteroid belt, Admiral Jane Wells floated in zero gravity, watching her fleet take shape. Hundreds of ships, hidden from the Empire's sensors by technology that shouldn't exist yet. Not according to their timeline. Status report. She called over the secure channel. Engine tests are complete on the Thunder-class ships. Admiral, her second-in-command, reported. The new stealth systems are working better than expected. The Empire's standard scans can't detect them at all. Jane allowed herself a small smile. The Empire's technology was advanced, but it was stagnant. They hadn't needed to innovate in centuries. Humans, on the other hand, had taken their stolen knowledge and transformed it into something new. Back on Earth, Marcus had been promoted to Chief of Signal Intelligence. His office wall displayed a map of known Imperial communications. Red dots showed their patrol routes, blue dots marked their major bases, and green lines traced their supply chains. All of it gathered without them knowing, piece by piece, year after year. The latest intercepts show they're right on schedule, he told the Global Defense Council. They still think we're just starting to develop basic fusion power. Our decoy programs are working perfectly. Around the table, representatives from every major nation nodded. The old rivalries hadn't disappeared, but they had faded in the face of a greater threat. Earth's visible technology advanced exactly as the Empire expected, while its real progress remained hidden underground, underwater, and in the asteroid belt. In a secret facility beneath the Pacific Ocean, Dr. Wilson stood before a massive screen displaying test results. The Empire's shields are designed to stop their own weapons, she explained to her team. They never considered alternatives. Our kinetic accelerators bypassed their defenses completely. The younger scientists took notes eagerly. They were part of a new generation, raised knowing the truth about humanity's place in the galaxy. Their universities might look normal from the outside, but their real lessons happened in hidden labs and classified facilities. How's the FTL drive coming along? Admiral Wells asked during her monthly inspection of the research division. Better than we hoped, Dr. Wilson replied. The Empire uses a standard fold space design. We took a different approach. Our ships can't match their raw speed, but we can navigate in fold space while they have to follow fixed routes. In tactical terms, that's a massive advantage. In orbit around Mars, the first full battle group completed its final tests. The ships looked nothing like the Empire's standard designs. Where Imperial vessels were massive and imposing, human ships were sleek and adaptable. Where the Empire relied on brute force, humanity had chosen precision and maneuverability. Time to condition check, Admiral Wells announced to her fleet commanders. How long until they arrive? Based on intercepted communications, the Empire's first contact fleet will reach our solar system in 8 months, Marcus reported. They'll follow their standard protocol: 3 heavy cruisers, 2 diplomatic vessels, and a dozen support ships, all positioned to look impressive, but not threatening to a primitive species. Jane nodded. And our real capabilities. Still completely hidden, Marcus assured her. Our decoy satellites are broadcasting exactly what they expect to see. As far as they know, we're still excited about reaching Mars with chemical rockets. The Admiral turned to look at Earth through her ship's viewport. From here, it looked peaceful, unprepared, just as the Empire expected. But humanity was ready. Their ships were faster, their weapons stronger, and their tactics untested. The Empire was about to learn a harsh lesson about underestimating humans. Send word to all commands, she ordered. Begin final preparations. When they arrive, we'll give them a welcome they'll never forget. The message spread through secure channels across the solar system. Humanity's moment was approaching. Soon, the galaxy would learn why it was dangerous to threaten Earth. The Imperial ships appeared exactly where Marcus had predicted they would. 6 massive vessels emerged from fold space just beyond Mars' orbit, their golden hulls gleaming in the sunlight. The rest of their fleet hung back near Jupiter, waiting to make their grand entrance. Right on schedule, Marcus said, watching from the hidden command center beneath the Pacific. They're following the standard first contact protocol to the letter. On screens around the world, the Imperial ships appeared as bright dots in the sky. News channels broadcast live footage, and crowds gathered in cities to watch. To most people on Earth, this was humanity's first contact with alien life. Only a select few knew the truth. Imperial Commander Reed stood on his flagship's bridge, looking down at the primitive planet with practiced disdain. "Begin the standard approach," he ordered. "Let's show these primitives something impressive." The Imperial ships moved in perfect formation, their engines leaving trails of blue light across space. They had performed this ceremony hundreds of times before. Every new species reacted the same way, with awe, fear, and eventual submission. Broadcast their message. Admiral Wells ordered from her hidden command ship. The Empire's transmission played across all channels on Earth. "People of Earth," Commander Reed's voice boomed in every language simultaneously. "We come as representatives of the Galactic Empire, bringing you the gift of civilization. Your world has been chosen to join our great society. Accept our protection, and prosperity will follow." In New York, London, Beijing, and every major city, people watched the ships approach. Some cheered, some prayed. None of them noticed the slight shimmer in space as humanity's hidden fleet moved into position. "They're starting their display of force," Marcus reported, tracking the Imperial ship's power signatures. "Standard intimidation tactics coming up." Commander Reed smiled as his ships began their carefully choreographed show of power. "Fire the warning shots," he ordered. "Let them see what they're dealing with." Bright beams of energy shot from the Imperial ships, deliberately missing Earth, but lighting up the sky. The display was meant to demonstrate their overwhelming technological superiority. Instead, it gave away their weapon configurations exactly as humanity had predicted. Admiral Wells waited until the Empire's display reached its peak. Then she pressed a single button on her command chair. "Time to introduce ourselves properly." Suddenly, the Empire's sensors screamed with warnings. Where there had been empty space, hundreds of human ships now appeared. They had been there all along, their stealth systems making them completely invisible to Imperial technology. "Impossible." Commander Reed stumbled back from his view screen. "They're primitives. They can't have ships." Admiral Wells' voice cut through all Imperial communications. "This is Admiral Jane Wells of the Earth Defense Fleet. We've been expecting you." The human ships moved with impossible precision, taking up attack positions that shouldn't exist in any tactical database. Their designs were completely alien to Imperial doctrine. Smaller, faster, more agile than anything the Empire had seen before. "You should have done better research," Wells continued, her voice cold. "You're not the first to try conquering Earth. You're just the first to give us this much warning." To demonstrate her point, a single human destroyer fired its kinetic accelerator. The shot passed straight through an Imperial cruiser's shields as if they didn't exist, puncturing its hull with surgical precision. "Impossible." Commander Reed shouted again. "Fall back. Emergency fold space jump." The Imperial ships retreated in panic, breaking centuries of protocol. They didn't even maintain formation as they fled, scattering like leaves in a storm. Admiral Wells opened a channel to all Earth frequencies. "To all citizens of Earth, the truth can now be told. For 15 years, we've prepared for this moment." The Empire thought they would find an easy conquest. Instead, they found humanity, united and ready. She paused, looking at the retreating Imperial ships on her screen. "And now, we send our first message to the galaxy. We know what you planned. We know what you've done to others. And we're going to change everything." The age of human submission was over before it began. The spark of rebellion had been lit. The Imperial capital world was in chaos. For the first time in 2,000 years, a first contact mission had failed. Worse, it had revealed a species that had somehow hidden its true technological level from the Empire's watchful eyes. Unacceptable. The Grand Admiral slammed his fist on the golden table. "No primitive species has ever resisted us. None have ever dared." Reports flooded in from across the galaxy. The news was spreading faster than the Empire could contain it. A small backwater world had not only rejected Imperial authority, but had thoroughly humiliated an Imperial fleet. Marcus watched the Empire's communications light up like a Christmas tree. "They're mobilizing everything," he reported to the Earth Defense Council, the largest fleet movement in their recorded history. Admiral Wells nodded, studying the tactical displays. "Exactly as we expected. They can't allow us to set this kind of example. How long until they arrive?" 3 days. They're pushing their fold space drives to the limit. 5,000 ships, including their heaviest battleships. The Empire's response fleet emerged near Jupiter's orbit, their massive ships blocking out the stars. Leading them was the Imperial Dreadnought, a vessel the size of a small moon. Its weapons could crack planets. "Surrender immediately." The Grand Admiral's message boomed across space. "Your defiance ends now. The Empire does not grant second chances." Admiral Wells stood on her bridge, watching the massive fleet approach. "All ships, execute Plan Thunder," she ordered calmly. "Show them what humanity can do." The battle began with a sight that shocked the Imperial commanders. The asteroid belt itself seemed to come alive. What they had dismissed as simple rocks were revealed to be carefully disguised human bases and shipyards. Hundreds of ships emerged from hiding. "Impossible." The Grand Admiral watched his tactical display fill with enemy signatures. "Their fleet is larger than we thought." But numbers weren't what made the human fleet dangerous. As the Empire's ships fired their first volley, the human vessels moved in ways that defied Imperial tactical doctrine. They slipped between the energy beams like dancers, their smaller size and advanced engines making them nearly impossible to hit. "Now," Wells ordered, "show them our teeth." Human ships launched their kinetic weapons, the specially designed projectiles passing straight through Imperial shields. The Empire had never considered defending against physical attacks, relying entirely on energy shields. It was a fatal mistake. The battle near Jupiter became a legend that day. Imperial ships found their usual tactics useless against an enemy that didn't behave like anything they had fought before. Human vessels struck from impossible angles, using the gas giant's gravity to slingshot into firing positions that Imperial computers insisted couldn't exist. "We're losing ships," an Imperial captain reported in panic. "Their weapons, they're not following any known patterns." The Imperial Dreadnought moved forward, its main weapon charging. It could destroy half of Jupiter with one shot. But before it could fire, a small group of human ships executed a precisely calculated fold space jump. They appeared inside the massive vessel's shield perimeter, their kinetic weapons tearing through its vital systems. "Fall back," the Grand Admiral ordered, watching his mighty fleet crumble. "Emergency retreat. All ships, fall back." As the Imperial fleet retreated in disarray, Admiral Wells broadcast on all frequencies. "Let this be a lesson," she announced. "Humanity will not bow. We will not serve. And we're just getting started." Marcus, watching from Earth, saw the Empire's communication networks explode with activity. Other species were watching. Other worlds saw the mighty Empire bleed, and they began to wonder if they too could resist. "Send word to all commands," Wells ordered. "Phase 1 is complete. Begin Phase 2. It's time to take the fight to them." The Empire had ruled through fear for thousands of years, but they had never faced an enemy like humanity. The real war was just beginning. News of the Empire's defeat spread across the galaxy like wildfire. On thousands of worlds, enslaved species watched recordings of the battle near Jupiter. They saw Imperial ships running away. They saw the impossible become possible. They saw hope. Marcus sat at his monitoring station, watching the Empire's communication network light up with reports of unrest. "It's happening," he told Admiral Wells. "Just as we planned. The Empire's control is breaking down." The first rebellion began on a mining world in the outer systems. The workers there had been slaves for generations, digging precious metals for Imperial ships. When they saw humans defeat the Empire's greatest fleet, they realized their chains weren't as strong as they thought. "We're receiving messages," Marcus reported. "Hundreds of them, from different species across the Empire. They want to know how we did it. They want to learn." Admiral Wells smiled. "Then let's teach them. Send out the technical packages we prepared. Show them how to modify their shields, how to build the weapons. It's time for Phase 2. The Empire tried to maintain control. They sent ships to crush the mining world's rebellion. But the rebels there had already learned from humanity's example. They used their mining equipment as weapons, hitting Imperial ships with asteroids guided by mining thrusters. Another Imperial fleet retreated in shame. On Earth, the Defense Council gathered to meet their first alien allies. Representatives from 10 different species arrived in secret, using the fold space routes humanity had mapped. They came to learn, to plan, and to join forces. "Your victory gave us courage," said the leader of the mining world rebels. "But your willingness to share knowledge gives us strength. The Empire kept us divided, kept us weak. You show us a different way." Admiral Wells stood before the gathered aliens, her voice firm. "The Empire believes in power through control. We believe in power through cooperation. They kept you apart because they feared what would happen if you worked together. They were right to be afraid." More rebellions broke out across Imperial space. Shipyard workers sabotaged Imperial vessels. Supply lines were cut. Communication networks were hacked using human techniques. The rigid structure of Imperial control began to crack. "The Empire's making mistakes," Marcus observed, watching their panicked reactions. "They're sending ships everywhere, trying to crush each rebellion. But that's spreading their forces thin, just like we planned." The human fleet split into smaller groups, each led by experienced commanders. They traveled to different sectors, teaching rebel forces how to fight, how to coordinate, how to win. Humanity's weapons and tactics spread across the stars. "Your ships are different," noted an alien engineer studying human vessel designs. "Smaller, faster, smarter. The Empire builds to show power. You build to win." Admiral Wells led the largest coalition fleet ever assembled. Ships of 15 different species flew together, each bringing their own strengths. Human tactics combined with alien technology created something the Empire had never seen before: true cooperation between equals. "Status report," Wells called as they approached another Imperial stronghold. "All ships in position," came the reply from a dozen different species. "The Empire's defenses are strong, but they're still using the same old patterns. They haven't learned." The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Imperial commanders found themselves facing ships that combined technologies in ways they'd never imagined. Species that had been slaves for generations proved they could be warriors when fighting for freedom. "Send word to Earth," Wells ordered after another victory. "Tell them Phase 2 is complete. The rebellion has spread beyond the Empire's control. It's time for Phase 3. Marcus relayed the message, watching as more and more Imperial systems joined the rebellion. The Empire had ruled through fear for thousands of years. But humanity had shown the galaxy something stronger than fear: hope. The final battle was approaching. The Imperial core system was beautiful and terrible to behold. 3 suns orbited each other in an eternal dance, their light reflecting off the golden hulls of 10,000 Imperial warships. At the center of it all hung the Throne World, a planet-sized city that had ruled the galaxy for millennia. "This is it," Admiral Wells said, looking at the tactical display. "Everything we've worked for comes down to this moment." The Coalition fleet emerged from fold space in perfect formation. 5,000 ships from 20 different species, led by humanity's most advanced vessels. They had fought their way across the galaxy, gathering allies and strength. Now they faced the Empire's last defense. Marcus watched from the command center on Earth, his screen showing the biggest battle in galactic history about to begin. "The Emperor is broadcasting," he reported. "Sending it through now." The Emperor's hologram appeared on every ship in both fleets. His voice carried the weight of thousands of years of absolute power. So the primitives have finally reached our door. You have caused much trouble, humans, but here, at the heart of our power, your rebellion ends. Admiral Wells stood on her bridge, her voice calm as she replied. You still don't understand. We're not here to end your empire. We're here to end the very idea that any species has the right to rule over others. The battle began with a display of imperial power designed to crush all hope. 10,000 ships fired at once, their energy weapons turning space itself into a web of deadly light. But the coalition fleet was ready. Execute Pattern Omega, Wells ordered. The human-designed shields flickered in a way the Empire had never seen, bending the energy attacks away. Not a single coalition ship was lost. Impossible, the Imperial commander shouted. Our combined firepower should have annihilated them. But the coalition fleet was already moving. Smaller ships darted between the Imperial formations, their modified weapons striking with surgical precision. Larger vessels launched waves of fighters that the Empire's targeting systems couldn't track. The Emperor watched in growing horror as his perfect defenses began to crumble. How? He demanded. How can primitives fight like this? Because we're not primitive, Wells responded. We're something you've never understood. Adaptable. Every species in this fleet brings their own strengths. We don't demand obedience. We learn from each other. The battle raged for hours. The Empire's numbers were overwhelming, but they fought like machines, following tactics that hadn't changed in centuries. The coalition forces fought with creativity, with determination, with hope. Marcus tracked the battle's progress, watching as more and more Imperial ships were disabled or destroyed. Their formations are breaking, he reported. The outer defense line is collapsing. The coalition fleet pressed forward, pushing toward the throne world. Imperial ships began to surrender, their crews realizing that the age of the Empire was ending. Some turned their weapons on their former masters, joining the coalition in its final push. Admiral Wells opened a channel to the Emperor. You have a choice, she said. Surrender now. Help us build something better, or watch your empire burn. We'd prefer peace, but we're prepared for either option. The Emperor stood in his golden palace, watching his invincible fleet fall to species he had dismissed as primitive. Everything he had believed about the galaxy's natural order was crumbling before his eyes. Status report. Wells called out to her fleet. Coalition casualties at 15%, came the response. Imperial forces at 60% losses. Their central defense grid is failing. We have a clear path to the throne world. The Emperor looked out at the battle one last time, seeing the combined strength of 20 lesser species shattering his perfect order. For the first time in his long life, he felt fear. We await your answer, Wells said simply. The future of the galaxy hangs on your next words. Choose wisely. 1 year after the Battle of the Imperial Core, Marcus stood in the Great Hall of the new Galactic Council. The room was filled with representatives from 300 species, former slaves and masters now sitting as equals. Above them, the golden dome that once displayed the Empire's symbol now showed a simple star map, marking all worlds as the same size and importance. The last Imperial holdout surrendered yesterday, he reported to Admiral Wells, who now served as Earth's representative on the Council. The transition is finally complete. Wells nodded, watching alien diplomats discussing trade agreements and cultural exchanges. Where the Empire had forced uniformity, the Council encouraged diversity. Where the Empire had hoarded knowledge, the Council shared it freely. Did you ever think, she asked Marcus, when you first discovered those signals 15 years ago, that it would lead to this? Before he could answer, the Council chamber's main doors opened. The Emperor entered, but not as he once was. Gone were his golden robes and crown. He wore simple clothing now, having chosen to serve as an advisor to help dismantle the Empire's old systems. The former mining worlds report their production has doubled. The Emperor announced to the Council, when people work freely, they work better. Another lesson I should have learned long ago. The Council session began, with representatives from every species taking turns to speak. They discussed everything from trade routes to cultural preservation, from technological sharing to environmental protection. Every voice had equal weight. Every suggestion was considered. Earth's universities report they're ready to accept the first wave of alien students, Wells announced to the Council. And our scientists are eager to begin exchange programs with other worlds. A representative from the former mining world stood up. Our people have modified the old imperial mining techniques using human innovations. We can now extract resources without damaging planetary environments. We offer this knowledge freely to all. Marcus watched from his seat as more representatives shared their achievements. The galaxy was changing faster than anyone had expected. Species that had been enemies for thousands of years now worked together, each bringing their unique strengths to solve common problems. The Imperial archives have been fully opened, the Emperor added. All the knowledge we hoarded, all the secrets we kept, they now belong to everyone. It is time for the light of truth to shine everywhere. Wells stood to make her final announcement. The Earth Defense Fleet is being reorganized into the Galactic Peace Force. Any world that wishes to contribute ships and crews will be welcome. We will protect freedom, not enforce control. The council chamber erupted in approving sounds from 100 different species. The former imperial capital, once a symbol of oppression, had become a center of cooperation and learning. Marcus checked his data pad, smiling at the latest reports. Trade was flowing freely across the galaxy. New discoveries were being made daily as different species shared their knowledge. The golden age they had hoped for was actually happening. One last item. Wells addressed the council. We've detected signals from a newly developing civilization in the Outer Rim. They're just beginning to reach for the stars. The chamber fell silent. Everyone knew what this meant. Under the Empire, this would have been the beginning of another conquest. I move that we send them a message, Wells continued. Not of domination, but of welcome. Not of submission, but of friendship. Let's show them what the galaxy can be when we work together. The vote was unanimous. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Later, as Marcus prepared to return to Earth, he looked out at the three suns of the core system. The Empire had lasted for thousands of years, ruling through fear and power. It had taken humanity just 15 years to show the galaxy a better way. Ready to go home? Wells asked, joining him at the viewport. Marcus nodded. Home to prepare for the next challenge. After all, there's always another civilization out there, waiting to join the stars. The Empire's final warning had become the galaxy's greatest gift. The knowledge that cooperation was stronger than conquest, that diversity brought strength, and that no species needed to stand alone.